Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping headfirst into one of the most intense trading styles out there, professional scalping. And we're doing it using an awesome guide from the pros over at Scout. So let's get right into it. So, I want you to forget everything you know about long-term investing. Buying and holding. We're talking about a high-speed sprint. Think dozens of trades where you're in and out of a position in just minutes, sometimes even seconds. Yeah, that's the pulse-pounding world of scalping. All right, so let's get a formal definition on the books. What exactly is scalping? Well, think of it this way. It's a trading style where you make a ton of super short-term trades. You're not trying to hit a massive home run with one big trade. Nope. The goal here is to get a bunch of small wins, like base hits, by profiting from all those tiny little price wiggles that happen constantly throughout the day. Okay, but before we even touch the how-to, the mechanics of it all, we've got to talk about the mindset. This is super important. Because scalping, it's not just some strategy you can download and use. It's a whole discipline. It really demands a certain type of person. So the real question is, who is a scalper?
And the guide we're using is super clear about this. It says success really comes down to these 4 psychological pillars. First up, discipline. You have to treat this like a real job, not a game. Then there's patience. And I know, that sounds kind of funny for a high-speed style, right? But you need it to handle that crazy high-stress environment without freaking out. Third, you've got to have quick decision-making. When a trade is on, you can't hesitate. You just have to act. And last, but honestly probably the most important, you have to be completely risk-obsessed. Managing your risk has to be your #1 absolute top priority. Period.
Okay, so we've got the mindset down. Now let's get into the toolkit, because a scalper sees the market in a totally different way than your average trader, and because of that, they use a completely different set of tools to look at it. And the source gives us this just brilliant analogy to really get this. Think of most trading as sailing. You're on the surface of the water, right? You're just looking at price and time on a 2D chart. But scalping? Oh, scalping is like scuba diving. You're not on the surface anymore. You're diving deep into the market, exploring this whole 3D world of not just price and time, but also volume. So you're probably asking, okay, how do I actually dive? Well, your main piece of gear isn't the price chart that most people are glued to. For a scalper, the primary tool is something called the order book. Think of it as your submarine window, letting you see into the very depths of the market, showing you that real-time landscape of all the buy and sell orders just sitting there. This is where it gets really cool. It's all about how these different tools work together to give you that full 3D picture. So how does a scalper actually read what feels like the market's DNA to see what's happening right now, what just happened, and maybe even what's about to happen? Well, it's a really smart 3-part system. First, you have the order book. This shows you all the orders waiting to be filled. You can think of this as a glimpse into the future. Then, you've got the tape of trades. This is literally every trade happening in real time. That's your present. And finally, you have clusters. These show you all the historical trading volume at specific prices, giving you a detailed map of the past. So see, past, present, and future, all on one dashboard, helping you make those split-second decisions with actual data. All right, so you've got the mindset, you've got the tools. Now what? Well, it all comes down to execution. And for a scalper, that execution stands on 2 and only 2 really solid pillars: strategy and risk. What's interesting is that the core strategies are super focused. Scalpers aren't looking for 100 different patterns. They're usually hunting for 2 very specific, very powerful events that they can spot in that order book. Huge price moves that either break out through a big wall of orders or rebound hard off of one. But, and this is maybe the biggest takeaway, the strategy isn't just about finding those trades. For a true scalper, managing your risk is the main strategy. It's everything. The guide says it perfectly. If you don't limit risks, profits and deposits can easily burn out. And that's no joke. Without that ironclad risk management, this game can wipe you out fast.
Okay, so let's make this risk management thing real. Let's stop talking in abstractions and look at a hard number. The guide gives us this example, so take a look at this number, $59,940. What on earth could that be?
Well, that number is your safety net. It's your eject button. Let's break down how you get there using a stop-loss order. Imagine you have a $10,000 deposit. You decide, okay, the absolute most I'm willing to lose on any one trade is just $10. That's a tiny 0.1%. So if you go long on Bitcoin at, say, $60,000, the math is simple. It tells you exactly where your line in the sand has to be. Your stop loss gets placed right at 59,940. If the price even touches that, you're out. Your position closes automatically, and you've protected your capital. That is what discipline looks like in practice. And really, that brings us to the final, most important point of this whole thing. Look, anyone can learn the techniques. You can study the order book, you can practice spotting breakouts. That's a skill you can acquire. But the discipline to always stick to your risk rules, to master your emotions, to treat this like a serious profession, that's not a skill, that's a choice. So as we wrap this up, the question the guy leaves us with is a simple one. What is your choice?